Dear church, let's talk about marriage and family. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley. I'm excited about our guests today. They are my friends, Wayne and Tammy Roberts. I know these folks from a lot of different ways, and but Wayne has been a mainstay at our preacher training camp every year, kind of hosting that and doing the homiletics portion of that. Tammy has been involved in our Shine Camp, our girls' camp, for several years, and just so blessed to know them and to have them on our show today. They do these marriage family seminars called His Shoes, Her Shoes, and that's really kind of what I want y'all to talk about today, but you can get into whatever else you want to get into, but that's really kind of the point. You know, we've had Trey on here, and I know you guys love and adore Trey and Lee, and they've talked a little bit about their upcoming book and the marriage seminars that they do. And what I really like is that we've had both of you guys at Oldham Lane, and both of you bring great material in different ways and cover some different points. And so I really wanted to give an opportunity for our listeners and watchers to get your guys' viewpoint and just talk about some of the things that you talk about in your seminars, because I think it's really, really needed stuff nowadays. You know, one of the things that I've always said is that I don't believe the divorce rate is so high because, the common superficial reasons people point to, that may be part of it, but I think really the reason is because so many people don't consult the divine architect. They don't really even know what marriage is supposed to be in the first place. And I know that you guys really dig into that and talk about that on a very intimate, personal level. And man, thank you guys so much for being here. Hey, before we jump in though, tell us a little bit. I know you, but tell us, for the folks that are tuning in, a little bit about yourselves and what y'all are doing.
Well, Tammy is married to an excellent guy. I just wanted to start there. But no, Tammy and I actually celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary last week. We've got 5 kids. We've got 10 grandkids. For the last 6.5 years, we've dedicated most of our attention to marriage and family type seminars, though we have worked with several churches in that time as well. That really has been our big thrust. And until about the 12th of March of this year, that had occupied about 25 to 30 weekends a year. Needless to say, it has been a quiet 4 months for us. But I will tell you, it may be that now more than ever, help for marriages may be important.
Yeah. I think he's referring to the whole quarantine thing and spending time together.
You think there's too much of a good thing.
We did our marriage seminar at sea. Yeah, when we did our marriage seminar at sea, we said if you can't be locked into a boat with your spouse for 5 days and work out your problem, it can't be worked out. It's something about being together. But seriously, you talked about the idea of the divorce rate and where that's at. And there's all kinds of numbers. I'm kind of like you. I don't think it necessarily is as high as they make it out. But I'm even more concerned about couples who are not divorcing but living together in misery. Yeah. I mean, they've got this high view, and rightly so, of marriage and a responsibility to God, but they think that God is kind of like, grin and bear it. I reminded you, it only lasts until you die. And I think they think, well, I could kill the other one and that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
But our approach has simply been, if you can take and look at your marriage from your spouse's perspective.
And that's not easy.
No.
Yeah. The new word today is empathy. If you can be empathetic with where somebody else is, it improves your communications, it improves your relationship. But that's not easy because we are wired to be self, even if it's not selfish, right? I mean, we were created by God as independent beings with unique characteristics, that we're different. And so we approach our marriage with, it's my marriage, my hopes, my dreams. Even though she's a very involved part of it, it's my life. And so we had to, first of all, in our own life and our own marriage, we had to take a perspective of taking a step back and then taking a step into the other's shoes and asking ourselves, what's it like to be the wife, if it's from, as I'm considering, or Tammy to consider, what's it like truly to be the husband? And for us, it was very eye-opening, and that, I don't know that we offer anything brand new by way of content, and certainly we want it to be biblical and anybody can read scripture, but simply to pause for a moment, say, what's it like to be in the other person's shoes?
Yeah.
And can we put it, that's not easy.
It's not easy. And I like what you say in your seminars, that it's not about you. And then you turn right around and say it is about you. So explain that a little bit. You've already talked about how it's not about you, but it is about you in another shape, right? Shape and form.
Yeah, Tammy actually coined that expression when she was talking with women who would contact her and say, man, I have troubles in my marriage, and this and this and this and this. And all of it started with kind of I, right?
Yes.
I this, I like, I don't like, I'm not feeling fulfilled. And Tammy said, well, it's not about you. In fact, from a spiritual perspective, that really needs to be our overarching mandate, right? This isn't about us. Love by its very nature means self-sacrificing, seeking the well-being of another. Our life no longer is lived for us. We live it for Jesus Christ. We live it in love for others. And so it's not about you. But at the same time, the one place that you have an opportunity to change and to fix is you.
Yes.
Right. That's the only person that you can really change.
Right. It comes down to, and if you're married, you've learned that lesson that you're not going to change your spouse. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I've tried and I've tried.
I'm trying hard to.
But if I focus on making sure I'm who I'm supposed to be, it's a blessing, not just to me, it's a blessing to my husband as well. So
right.
It's not about you, but you're the only one you can change. You're
Absolutely.
the only one that you can grow.
We describe it this way. We say, rarely do you know that your feet stink. So you're always worried about everybody else, your spouses being what they're supposed to be. And even though there may be a place for you to educate them or to encourage them, or for that matter, threaten them, the only person really you have a direct impact on changing is you. And that's the place to start. How can you be the very best you that you can be?
Yeah, and I really like that, because I have learned that when there would be lulls in our marriage, and we've been married 24 years, when you'd have those lulls in your marriage, it took me a long time because I'm pretty hard-headed. I started realizing, this isn't really as much a problem with her as it is with me, and I'm expecting things that I'm not really living up to. And when I realized that, I started, focusing more on my relationship with God. I started focusing on, prayer, studying scripture, just my relationship with Him. It affected everything else. It made everything else better. And I think, tell me what you guys have learned in 39 years. I mean, what has been the biggest thing that has helped y'all to stay together?
If she can put up with me, anyone can put up with anyone.
Okay.
No, I think, there's probably 2 or 3 lessons that we really have come to. And I will say that we've learned that just sticking together is not the answer to it.
Right.
Gritting it out, waiting till you die. But sometimes you have to have the attitude of saying, guess what? There are no other options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would I do if I knew I couldn't get out of this relationship? And there's basically 3 things that people do. One is they just are mad the whole time and they go through their marriage that way. Number 2 is they don't divorce, but they live separate in the same house.
Yeah.
Or number 3, they find a way to, I guess you'd say, give and take. They learned that, Tammy's dad is a wonderful man. And I believe that my dad was a wonderful, godly man. 2 men could not have been more different.
Yeah.
And when we first got married, I will just tell you, I was a whole lot of my dad.
Yeah.
And she was a little frustrated early on that I wasn't more.
My dad is a quiet, gentle spirit.
Okay.
Not
So maybe more like me than I thought. But we had to learn that, he would come in and say something like, you're starting to act like your dad. I took it as a compliment.
Yeah,
right?
That's a great thing.
But the truth was, she was frustrated, not really in the way I was being as a husband or even quote unquote act like my dad, but she had this picture in her mind. And so often we go into a marriage with preconceived ideas that have nothing to do with right and wrong. They have to do with what we're used to or what we're appalled by or what we prefer. And then when our spouse doesn't meet that expectation, even though we maybe never have communicated about that expectation, then we're disappointed because the unrealistic expectation was never met because, well, it's unrealistic.
Yeah. And you never knew it to begin with. Yeah.
Right. I think one of the hardest things for us maybe, is that learning to I don't always have to have my way. We're always right. We both are always right.
Sure.
So learning, okay, I don't have to fight about where the forks go, and I don't have to fight.
No, there's her way and the right way. Those are the two.
There you go. Yeah, not everything has to be a battle.
Learning that. Yes, exactly.
Right. But, I was very obsessive compulsive when we were first married. I mean, in my desk drawer, it was pencils that had been sharpened, too far, but I wasn't ready to throw them away.
And in my drawer, you had to dig to find the pencil.
Yeah, right along the socks and the screwdrivers. That's the kind.
Yeah.
And seriously, when our kids were first coming along, I had to learn to give on those for the family to succeed. Kids don't leave the pencils in the drawer where they found them.
Right.
And that was frustrating. And it can be the same even to this day, 39 years later, the way that we think about things, the way that we approach a problem or a task to be done, the way we schedule our day, they're very different. And it is easy to start thinking what I was kind of joking about. There's her way and there's the right way. You have to begin to realize, listen, it's just the way she processes. It's just the way she approaches. It's just the way I handle it. It's just the way I deal with it. And having that understanding comes from, again, back to what I said in the beginning, is trying to say, okay, let's think about the fact that she is trying to reach the same objective and she's taking her talents, her skills, abilities, her experience, and she's applying it to that. And just because your tool set is different or your approach doesn't mean she's not interested in the same thing and not trying as well. And it may be that she's even got a better idea than you did.
Yeah.
I think probably the most important thing, though, in our marriage and in any marriage is we have always worked to put God first. And we've had our valleys. We've had those times when we weren't being who we were supposed to be.
Sure.
But we did come back around and realized God comes first. Whatever we're going to go through in this life, we're going to make sure we look to him and his word and let him lead us. And,
absolutely.
And even that is difficult sometimes.
Yeah, we try to remind couples their marriage isn't going to last.
Yeah.
No marriage is going to last beyond this life.
Right.
In other words, our relationship is more about something beyond this life. It's about helping one another get to an ultimate. In fact, one time, I'll never forget, I thought I was being really romantic. I came into Tammy, I'd been studying the words of Jesus. I said, I just thought about something about heaven I'm not going to like. And she goes, what in the world would you not like about heaven? I said, well, Jesus says in heaven, they're not married, right? They're not given in marriage. And I don't know that I like the idea of it not being you and me, us married. And you know what she responds? She says, oh, it'll be so much better.
Yeah.
But she's right?
Yes.
I mean, if I truly seek what's best for her and vice versa, the thing that we most want for our spouse is for their relationship to be in with Jesus for an eternity rather than just clinging on to us for just this life. And so we say marriage is about the soul and the soul is about marriage, right? They both play, they're cyclic in that. And so you want to do something great for your marriage? Start by improving your relationship with God. You want your relationship with God to be what's supposed to be? Then work to make a marriage that brings him glory, because at the end of the day, that's our life purpose. And so we always illustrate it, if you can grow closer to God, you ultimately grow closer to each other because that relationship is strengthened by your relationship with him.
Yeah. You said something a while ago about the pencils, and it reminded me that I've heard you guys speak about this a lot, that how, we talk about men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and we talk about how different they are. But actually, y'all have talked about how the roles were kind of reversed, where, Yeah, am I right? I mean, y'all have talked about that several times.
Not yet. They're not kind of reversed.
Yes. When I first married, I thought there was something wrong with me because I'm reading all those marriage books going, but that's him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the guy and he's the girl, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
There's a great book that's called Waffles and Spaghetti. And the concept is that men, typically, generally speaking, are like waffles. They've got all these compartments and they work one compartment at a time, and that the wife is more like spaghetti. At our house, just the opposite. Tammy will say, I will work on that as soon as I get this off my plate. And I feel like I've got Medusa in both hands, snakes going everywhere. And that has a little bit to do with the nature of our work and our ministry, but it has a lot to do with our personality. I mean, I love Broadway and she wants a Harley Davidson. So, that tells you a little bit. But that requires an adjustment, because when Tammy goes into it going, I have to be what the traditional wife is, or the traditional woman, not guided by Scripture and the roles that God has given us, but thinking, I'm supposed to be that, and the husband thinks, I'm supposed to be this. One of those preconceived ideas, we get together and we're oil and water.
Sure.
And I thought she was water and I was oil, and it's just the opposite.
And on top of it, I have this rebellious spirit that goes, well, don't tell me how to behave.
Yeah. Right.
So trying to who God calls her to be is complicated when we go, yeah, but you're supposed to be what everybody else thinks you're supposed to be, or what your mom was or your dad was. It's about, and that's one of the things that we've had to find out, and we still are, how we are. I mean, I joke that we were engaged and I had to call Tammy to find out her middle name. That's how little we knew about each other. And sometimes I still feel like I need to roll over in the morning and go, who are you? Because I'm learning something. And that really is one of the things that complicates it too. About the time you get your magic line, you get normal, you figure out what each other is, the season of your life changes.
Yeah.
From there were no kids to now there are kids, to now there are kids, but they're teenagers, to that teenagers, college. And then one day you wake up and guess what? They don't know where you are. They don't care where you are. They've gone about their life, and you're back to those cumbersome days of your early marriage where you're trying to figure each other out all over again, redefine yourself.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, let's talk about that three-letter word that the church doesn't usually approach and doesn't really talk about a whole lot. If they do talk about it, they just talk about, it happens behind closed doors and you hope for the best. It's just kind of one of those things. It's kind of an elephant in the church, right? Don't talk about it.
You must be talking about sin, because that's what's happening behind closed doors, brother.
Yes.
No,
yes.
I probably am. I've got a great resume with 5 kids. I can tell you I know something about it.
Yes.
But one of the things that we've begun to understand, and it's unfortunate that you understand things when you understand them. You got to want to rewind the clock. I had somebody come up at a seminar and they asked us, they said, where were you 35 years ago when we were going through these problems? And I go, going through those problems and figuring this all out, But
working on the seminar, right?
Yeah, exactly right. I said, we were just trying to work our own way through it. But when it comes to sex and sexual intimacy, these are a couple things that we have discovered. Number one, it's obviously a beautiful thing. God created us as sexual beings. In fact, I mentioned to people, I said, do you realize that God talks about sex right off the bat?
Yeah.
I mean, of all the things he talks about, he says, let us create man in our own image. Now, that word man means like mankind. Right. It's not gender specific. And he created them male and female. And that's a sexual designation. It's biological sexual. And then he talks about reproducing after one's own species, right? So it's an important part to God, but he leaves it, or I should say, he doesn't just leave it like he did in the animal kingdom for the reproduction of the species. He makes it something that's enjoyable, pleasurable, and I think it serves a greater purpose. In other words, sexual intimacy is part of leading us to ultimate intimacy.
Yeah.
When God creates them, it says, what God joined them and they would become one flesh. There's kind of three things. There's lots of things that join us. I mean, we join by agreement. We join by law. We join by kids. I mean, you've heard people say they're going to stay together until the kids leave, right? That's
Yes.
what we're holding them together. But that becoming one flesh is to be mingled together. So imagine, two pieces of clay, two different colors, you join them together.
Yep.
But over time, they start getting mingled by God's hands. And that's where it's hard to know where the blue ends and the pink begins. And I think some people think that, well, you know what? If we have this sexual relationship and it goes really good, then we're intimate. And I think that's just one of many joinings that we do towards a greater good, because the day will come, and I can say that on this half of my life with less in front of me than was behind me, the day will come in which that part of a marriage will struggle for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Health reasons, age reasons. And if a marriage, sex in marriage is an important part of marriage, but if it becomes the most important part of marriage, that marriage is going to fail someday because it can't hold itself together. And so it's towards something else.
I also think you nailed it, Chris, when you said we don't talk about it in the church.
Yeah.
And shame on us for not doing that. I mean, if we would talk about it more in the church, I think we would have better marriages.
Yeah.
We would have a better understanding of that. I struggle with the fact that we don't. Now, is it an uncomfortable topic?
Sure.
Yeah, we've made it that way.
Yes.
We've made it that way. But if we did talk about it in a beautiful way, we've let the world tell us that sex is all about self-satisfying. Sure. And it's not. I mean, it can be, but
yes.
but that's not what it's all about.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, I know when I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, when I was teaching health, you come to that section, and with high school kids, my plea to them always was, don't laugh and don't ask questions, and we'll get through this, right? And, but I mean, I was reading in Genesis the other day, and it said, God tells them, be fruitful and multiply. And I'm like, you really have to tell them that? I mean, couldn't we figure that out? I mean, it doesn't take us long to figure out how to be fruitful and multiply. But I'm gathering, even though I hadn't looked at the original language necessarily, what I'm gathering is that God was giving a command that was so much more than just go out and procreate. Be fruitful and multiply was about more than just that. I mean, we are the only species that has sex face to face. Somebody said that the other day, and I thought, well, I hadn't really researched that, obviously, but that's interesting because that goes along with what you've said, is the commingling and the intimacy and all that. That there's more to it than just having kids. It's a unifying thing. It's obviously a pleasurable thing as well. And I think that where you see selfishness in a marriage is as much there as you do anywhere else, in the bedroom as much as anywhere else. And so I like what you said, Tammy, about that it's not all about that. It's not self-satisfying. I think that was a good point.
Yeah. Well, and you as a former teacher and coach know that for young men, typically it's only one of two approaches. It's that clinical approach. I hand out the coloring sheet, stay in the lines, and let's get out of this. Or the locker room where everything kind of has a slang name. Yep. And so our thought is, our job as the church isn't to deal with the physicality, the medical, the physiology, the biology of it. That's not our business. And we're sure not going to deal with that crass, obscene part. But I'll tell you what, we don't take then our role to talk about how wonderful it gets a no around its neck from day one. And we never explain the beauty of it. In fact, I'm convinced that sexual intimacy is never fully fulfilled outside of marriage. There's all kinds of things you can do to satisfy yourself outside of marriage, and I would be naive and a liar to say outside of marriage there's no pleasure in sexual activity. I'm just saying in marriage is something different.
It is.
And when couples aren't able to enjoy that togetherness, and I don't just mean the physical act, but the togetherness that is going to be that intimacy, no wonder they struggle. No wonder they struggle.
I agree. And I think it was our friend, Trey, that put something on Instagram recently about, all these better than sex chocolate cake or whatever it is. You're not doing it right. If chocolate cake is better and all that, but it's because we don't talk about it. It's because it's taboo. And, the church should be the one place that we do talk about this and that we have some guidance and direction here, because we are so, this really aggravates me, but we are so staunch on the whole MDR, marriage, divorce, and remarriage, and the aspects of that, and even to the point where it's legalistic to some degree, and yet we don't talk about the proactive side of things and how to, sex being one of those, but also the things that y'all talk about in your seminars, how to make this godly and the best that it can possibly be, because none of them are going to be perfect, but at the same time, it can still be successful, right?
Right. Yeah. But it's like having somebody give you a gift and they say you can't open it until your birthday. You can't open it to Christmas. And all they ever talk about is you can't open it. Yeah. And so when Christmas comes, our birthday comes, we have it stuck in our mind. It's a no-no. Instead of that anticipation, it's going to be something wonderful, and I'm anxious for it. Now, I guess I could take the analogy all the way to the end. And then whatever that gift was, someday you're going to go, I'm tired of that, right? And so, hopefully at that point you've built a relationship, not on that, but it has contributed to building a relationship that will outlast even the sexual intimacy in a relationship. And then, like you said, we don't have to spend so much time cleaning up the kitchen if we didn't make the mess in the first place.
Right.
I even think we've put so much taboo on it in the church that it even makes couples uncomfortable talking about it in a marriage, even in your own marriage. Yeah. It's almost that dirty feeling.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that about the fact that you would have thought we would have naturally figured it out. Yeah. But the thing is, it's one of those conversations that is intimacy that we don't have even with the person that we're intimate with.
Right.
Tammy described it as a shoe. She goes to buy a shoe. She tries it on. She walks around in it. Is it comfortable? Does she like it? And then she maybe even takes it home. Well, intimacy is that way. There are some things, it's all new when we get married, at least hopefully. And so you find out, hey, that's uncomfortable, or that's not pleasurable, or this is, but we hope that we're going to, since the lights are off, we might as well grope in the dark to find it, And in fact, what we want to do is say, let's have a conversation. And I mean more than, how was that?
Yeah, exactly.
So, she always responds the same. Fine. So we want to try to say, you know what? There's a reason to talk about those things. Mm-hmm. And you may discover some things that you didn't want to know, but now that you know, you can work to fix them and make that part of your marriage a whole lot better.
Yeah.
I always tell the women, I say, this is the one area, sex is the one area where your husband actually would like your input. That's what he wants to hear from you.
Exactly right.
There's not many, but that's one area, right?
Yeah, that is.
Hey, tell me.
You'll still be wrong, but they would like to have
well, that's a given, right? So tell me this. You've talked about before that the difference between a tropical paradise and a deserted island is perspective. Expound on that a little bit, because I think what you're coming from, the point of view that you're taking here is that if we're only looking at the negatives, we're never going to see the positives, and we tend to focus on everything that's wrong with our spouse instead of focusing on the things that are good and right, and also instead of focusing on us, and we've got as many or more problems as our spouse does. So talk a little bit about that, the difference between a tropical paradise and a deserted island.
Well, and it is perspective, because people talk about, if I was just on this little island, just us, and we would drink from coconuts and we'd have all this fruit. But you watch that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. He's on an island. He's drinking from coconuts.
Yes.
And it's a totally different picture. So it's trying to develop that, just like you said, trying to develop that mindset. Let me throw in here too. Be very cautious of carrying that mindset we carry into our marriages pictures in our mind that aren't fair to each other.
Right.
Like Wayne had mentioned that about how I saw the husband's role based on my dad. But coming into that and understanding then, if you're on this island, if you're going to have this paradise, it depends on your viewpoint. How do you look at it? What do you see? And not always looking at it from the negative, from the I'm stuck here on this island. It's I get to be here on this island with the man of my dreams. It's how do you look at it?
Yes.
Now, I'm not naive. Life isn't always tropical drinks and sunshine.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always play that way. But trying to keep that mindset is helpful.
Yeah, and we encourage couples. We try to do it practically. In other words, it's not just where people go, well, change your attitude. We sit there and we go, yeah, it's not changing. But part of what Tammy said was when we feel that we're stuck in marriage, that it really is that you have to stay committed. God says till death do you part. You have no choice. That's stuck, right? If we're waiting just for the ship to come along in the distant future, we don't feel stuck on that island. Things like the reason it's a tropical or it's a deserted island versus a tropical paradise is I don't feel safe. It feels dangerous. If our relationship does not grow a safe place, then we're worried about the hostiles that we're sharing the island with.
Sure.
We worry about provision, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why Gilligan's Island could make anything out of a coconut except a radio, which is what they really needed,
Yes.
But we do. So we need to recognize that both of us come into that relationship providing for the other in their needs. And when we do that, now all of a sudden, hey, this isn't so terrible. My wife gave me one of the best compliments. I hope my kids don't watch Ripple of Light or this podcast because they'll find this out. But we'd spent a great deal of time with them. And she says, I am looking forward to us spending some time with just the two of us.
Yeah.
And that seems strange because we have great kids. We have a great time together. We love our grandkids. But in time, you'll find out that, what we'd like is a vacation from all of that and just the two of us back on the sand, listening to the surf, palm trees blowing in the breeze, and somebody other than each other bringing us that little drink with the umbrella in it. And you can, that's possible, I believe, for any marriage if they'll simply allow some of those things that will lead to the tropical paradise and get them off of that deserted island.
I try to remind people that go back to the beginning. What made you fall in love with each other in the first place? Look at that. There is something there. Unless you were stuck in a marriage with a gun, that your dad had a gun in your back or his back, making you marry one another, there's a reason you did.
Yeah.
So it's get back and cling to that and then build on that. Because the love Wayne and I had in the beginning, like he said, we only dated 4 months. It was so shallow. It was such a shallow thing. And so, but we can take that little nugget and in those low places, I'm like, okay, don't kill him. You do kind of like him,
And I say, don't kill him. You still do kind of like him.
Yeah,
right?
there you go. There you go. You said that, Wayne. I have a preacher friend that says the best Christmas lights are the tail lights, when everybody leaves and I thought how awful that is until I became an empty nester. And like I said, I hope my kids don't pay attention to this podcast either. But, then they came home for spring break and never went back because of the pandemic. And it's like we were just getting accustomed to the empty nest. We were just starting, because the first 2 or 3 days of that, when we left them at Harding and we came home, we're like, wow, this is sad. There's no commotion. They're not here. You can't just, and then after about 3 days of it, you kind of look at each other and say, there's about as many positives as there are negatives here. This isn't too bad. And we were just getting adjusted. But I know exactly what you're talking about because that's a new season in life for us that we've really looked forward to. And now that we've experienced it, even in a small sample size, it's been really good because, you spend so much time and energy devoted to your kids and traveling to ball games and all that. And then when it's over, it ends abruptly. And now you have to adapt and adjust. And those who can do that well, it's a blessing. It has been for us,
And And husbands need to be especially aware of those transitions. I always say when that last kid moves out, the husband gets up on Monday morning and goes back to his job. It probably didn't change.
Yeah.
And most of his day is spent at the work he had before. In other words, though his at-home life is different, the rest of his day is very much the same. You have a wife that was a wife, then she became a mother, and then a nurse, and a teacher,
Yep.
and a design consultant, and a wedding planner, and all those things. And she wakes up one morning, and there's technically nothing to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There isn't clothes to pick up. There isn't laundry to do. There aren't big meals. There's not all the moving around. And I'm speaking, obviously, it kind of overgeneralizing.
I start to say, because Chris, with you, when your son goes away, there goes your hunting buddy, your
Yes.
fishing buddy.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, at all the
it is.
sports. Yeah, that
Yes.
was
Yeah.
that was the hard part, following him in sports and then
Yeah,
and
but it does leave, it leaves a void. And I always say, I tell parents, you were a partner before you were a parent.
yeah.
But guess what? You're going to wake up one day and you're going to be partners again. And all the time your kids are growing up, you need to still be building that relationship. Because if nothing else, even if you've got your little princess, you've got your little, soldier, that one day she's going to be the only person left here. And it might be a good idea if she still likes you and vice versa. And
Yeah.
so that's good. That's good throughout those child rearing years.
Absolutely. Hey, tell us, guys, where people can find you, his shoes, her shoes, information and all that. Tell us how people
Yeah.
can find you and plug in.
You can go to our website. It's simply hisshoeshershoes.com. From there, you're welcome to kind of view the site. We've got some upcoming seminars, though those have been dramatically impacted, but that's where we constantly push out. We also have a Facebook page that usually has some things to help you along the way. If you want to, you can contact us, whether it's for the interest in a seminar or if you'd like to say, hey, I've got this situation. You just click on the contact us list, comes right to our personal email box. And we do that with lots of folks trying to help them out. We are not marriage counselors. We're not therapists. We don't carry a license. We like to think of ourselves, and this might be insulting to you, Chris, but we like to think of ourselves as coaches. You need a coach when you're doing bad, and you need a coach hopefully when you're doing good to
Absolutely.
do better. And so we want to be open to whoever. Tammy and I communicate regularly with a number of people. And though we're a little bit behind our friends Trey and Lee, just because we wanted all the excitement for their book, hopefully very soon our book will be done. If I can get my attention on those last few chapters of editing, it's all ready to go. So we'll let you know about that as that comes to fruition or full fruition.
Well, y'all are phenomenal coaches, and what I really appreciate with the both of you, highly creative, very personable, able to connect in ways that a lot of people can't, and we're just blessed to have you guys. Just thank you so much. I want to let our watchers and or listeners know that if you have a question, you can email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com, and if you have a question specifically for Wayne and Tammy, we'll make sure that they get it, and they will help you out and answer it in the best way that they can. We just want you to know that we're here to help you. And if you have interest in having Tammy and Wayne come and speak to your congregation, I tell you, they do a fantastic job. We've had them at Oldham Lane, and you would definitely benefit from that. Please let them know. And hopefully this pandemic will be over soon, and y'all can get out and do more of the seminars. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just love you guys.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank everyone for tuning in, and hopefully you spread the word about the podcast and let people know we're on iTunes, Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, all the channels. Just thank you so much. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.